Good day and welcome to this episode of Focus On. I'm Gyama Musipili. The 7th edition of the Namibia International Energy Conference is on our doorstep. This conference is set to take place in Windhoek and it will gather government decision makers, industry leaders and investors to drive industry growth, as well as focus on some of the key milestones and strategic moves towards establishing Namibia as a leading energy hub. To expand more on this conference, I am joined by Salma Shimutukweni, CEO of Rich Africa Consultancy and the convener of NIEC 2025. Salma, always a pleasure having you back here in studio to talk about NIEC. I want to talk about this year's conference. You have been doing this for a while, but particularly the focus for this year's conference. What is it and why the choice from yourself as an organization?
First of all, I just want to thank you for having me once again. Yes, we have the 7th edition coming up from the 23rd to the 25th of April, this year in Windhoek, Namibia. The theme of the conference is leading the way towards becoming an energy hub with in-country value. In terms of the energy hub, there's been a lot of developments in Namibia's energy sector over the past few years. And it's looking at what are the building blocks for Namibia to become an energy hub, to address our energy security challenges, as well as not only for Namibia, but also for the region as well. And the in-country value is how do Namibian businesses as well as communities participate in the Namibia Energy Hub? Yeah.
I really want to break it up. From what I get from you, it's a dual or twofold approach in terms of focusing on the economic opportunities that stand for Namibia, and as well as involving the various stakeholders into the progress of Namibia's energy sector. You've been doing this for a while. What would you say is at the forefront of your passion in terms of for the energy sector, but also economic transformation and ensuring that your transformation is inclusive?
No, definitely. I specialize in natural resources law and policy. So that's my background. And I'm very passionate of how we can unlock the value of our resources into development. I believe that energy is a big enabler for industrialization, not just for Namibia, but for the whole continent. If we're looking at infrastructure development, education, healthcare, if you look at the foundation of it, you need energy for that. Another thing that's very important is that this sector requires collaboration. We need investment to unlock value, and hence it's a very collaborative effort where you need the public and private sector to collaborate, and of course the community, the people, the citizens. If energy unlocks the value, then the standard of living does increase. So for me, my question is always, how come the continent is so wealthy yet so poor? So we need to unlock energy for the continent to go to the next level.
And I also just want to speak about it being the 7th edition. You've passed the infancy stage and you're, maturing and evolving. Just give us a brief overview over the years. What are some of the highlights? What is the evolution of the conference looking like?
We've been driving the energy conversation in Namibia since 2012. So prior to the developments, at the time when the conference was launched, we only had the Kudu gas developments in Namibia. And now, 2025, we've had many oil and gas discoveries from leading companies such as Total Energies, Shell, Gulp, and then also we're seeing a lot of big players in the country, like for example, Chevron was actually our diamond sponsor. And we've attracted a lot of international oil companies as well as service companies. So, Namibia is that frontier energy. And not only that, as a country, there's an energy mix approach from our government. So not only are there developments in the oil and gas industry, there's also development in the renewable energy space as well, from solar to wind to green hydrogen. And also, looking at how does Namibia contribute to the power pool, the Southern African power pool. So the conference really looks at the whole entire energy value chain. Of course, also looking at, the infrastructure that is required, especially with the discoveries right now. The conversation is around, we need to build infrastructure to support the emerging oil and gas industries. So in terms of evolution, in the first conference was the road to discovery and beyond. And now we're talking about becoming an energy hub. So it has grown. We had more than 46 countries represented at the conference, and that number keeps growing. We're expecting delegations from Brazil, from Norway, from the US, Europe, as well as Asia. And also because the platform is also thought leadership, it's very important for us to have experts from the continent to share lessons learned. Because we are facing similar challenges. Some countries are more advanced than others in the energy journey, and Namibia has an opportunity to leverage that and kind of avoid, some of the mistakes made in the resources space.
Staying particularly in terms of looking forward to the future as we transition from traditional energy sources to now renewable energy sources, what is the position of renewables such as wind and solar and hydrogen fit into that conversation that we had about Namibia's energy mix?
Okay, yeah. I mean, the Ministry of Mines and Energy and our government has been very, very clear to state that they're focusing on an energy mix in Namibia. I mean, for you to transition, you need to have energy. I think that's a conversation, especially from an Africa-focused conversation. You have to have energy to transition from traditional to renewable. And we are sitting with a situation where more than 500 million people on the continent have no access to power or to energy. So in terms of that, our government is leveraging all the energy sources in the country, whether it's oil and gas, solar, wind, green hydrogen, to contribute to development in the country. And I think that's the position of many African countries as well.
I mean, as you mentioned, the deficit or the demand stands so high, and I would assume the approach that would be best fitting is an all-hands-on-deck approach. When we speak about public-private partnerships, what is the role or the opportunity for private sector players as well to involve themselves and play a role in terms of meeting Namibia's energy needs?
Yeah, I mean, the private sector plays a major role. As I mentioned before, the sector is very capital intensive. So the government's role is to create an enabling environment to attract these companies in the country by having, stability, clear and transparent regulatory framework, as well as fiscal regime. And then, of course, the companies, they bring the capital, they bring the technology, but also there's the issue of local content, which Namibia has a policy on local content, which means that they need to see Namibian companies participating. They want to see, women represented in the industry. They want, the industry to make plans for the youth to participate in the industry. So in that regard, collaboration is key. But you need to have an enabling environment to attract these companies, because they're investing billions in the industry, and especially with the oil and gas sector, which is very high risk, in its nature. They need to know that they're able to get their returns as well. But also from a government point of view, it is very important that Namibians have an opportunity to prepare and participate in the industry, in the value chain.
And while you've really laid out some of the plans that you have in place from the position of government, I really want to carry on the policy question. Additionally, what would you say are some of the milestones or significant programs in place that really showcase the opportunity that exists in Namibia?
That's a great question. I think from a policy point of view, the fact that we have a local content policy, which is going to be, addressed in a phased approach, because obviously from an oil and gas perspective, at exploration, it requires different kind of local participation. Then it moves to development, and it moves to production. So the fact that there's a plan, it makes sure that there's a long-term approach of how Namibians can benefit, setting the clear rules of engagement in terms of making sure people come along on this journey. From a power perspective, there's definitely been made great strides in the renewable energy space. So, even the oil companies, for example, they all have renewable energy arms. So they are also, looking at, how do we not only protect the environment, how do we reduce emissions? Because the reality is there are pros and cons to the different sectors. And then also another opportunity which maybe people will not focus on is the role of critical metals in the energy transition conversation. Namibia is rich with lithium and the rare earth metals, which are also needed for the energy transition. So the opportunity is not only on the oil and gas front, but also for the mining sector in terms of our rare earth metals. And then obviously there's a lot of innovation in terms of the green hydrogen and hydrogen space as well. Yeah.
Well, Salma, it certainly sounds exciting. But just before I let you go, what is your message to anyone that is interested in attending NIEC 2025?
My message is, everyone is welcome to attend. This is the right platform to engage decision makers. So decision makers, not only policy makers, but also leading energy companies, leading service companies. It's also an opportunity because it's still at an emerging phase. Many of the companies are actually unpacking what other services they need to support the industry. So even from hospitality, we need hotels, transportation, infrastructure development in terms of the oil and gas logistics hubs, for example, aviation. So the opportunities in terms of backward and forward linkages, they are abundant. But you need to be in the room. You need first mover advantage. And so if you really want to understand the Namibian energy landscape as well as Southern African energy landscape and engage thought leaders, engage experts, the guys on the ground, the conference is the place to be. I can go on and on. SLB, Halliburton, many of these companies are going to be there. And not only, we're also attracting a lot of the global vice presidents.
We could go on, Salma, and certainly you are leading the way, not only for Namibia to become an international energy hub, but as well as your inauguration of the first female president. But that was my guest, Salma Shimutukweni, CEO of Rich Africa Consultancy and convener of NIEC 2025, for joining us today to expand on what we can expect at the 7th edition of the Namibia International Energy Conference. That's where we wrap up today's episode. But from me, Gyama Mosipele, and the rest of the CNBC Africa team, it's goodbye for now.